This is Paul, Dr. Nacho. This is one of my favorite segments because I don't have to do anything other than introduce this awesome panel of human beings that we've put together for you, the Dental Nachos Wellness Summit. We're going to have 3 different segments this afternoon on professional development, mental wellness, physical wellness. We have someone who's so good with physical wellness that you will start off being able to lift this weight and end being able to lift this weight. We're going to have parts on nutrition, things like always drink your tequila in the morning or bite the heads off your child's Easter candy. So I get to turn this over to you. Mary's going to be standing in for me. We have some cool free prizes. If you're watching in on Zoom, we're going to drop in the chat a 10-hour CE series on clinical practice management, leadership, and the most important skill of all as a dentist, and what they're going to help you with is how not to cry on the inside each day when you go into your dental office in real life with your family, with your dental office. That's Mr. Grumbly, who represents crying on the inside. So I'm going to turn this over to my awesome team. Before I do that, salsa@dentalnachos.com is our email bucket. If you have a question for someone, if you want to find out about the recordings to get this, if you missed some of this, salsa@dentalnachos.com. So I want to introduce you to some awesome Dental Nacho team members. Jill Ruggieri from Dental Nachos, also known as my sister. Ariel Meredith, our client services director. She'll wave to everybody on team there. And Mrs. Nacho standing in for me, which is awesome, Mary. So I'm going to let them take it away, and I'll be back at the end. Have a good time, guys.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Okay, awesome. Welcome, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started with our first segment on professional development wellness. So myself, I'll go ahead and get started with my panelists. So if we could just do some switching out here. I'll have Lonnie staying with us and Anna Haslinsky.
Awesome.
Okay, great. So like Paul said, my name is Jill Ruggieri, and I am one of the team members at Dental Nachos. My role is diverse here at Nacho headquarters. I am the special projects coordinator. 2 of the different things that I enjoy doing the most is my job connections role, where I connect with dentists with job opportunities. And then my other role is planning and executing our in-person events, which currently are on hold, but we will come back with lots of nachos once the ban is lifted for us to start getting together in person. So this segment is on professional development, and our 2 panelists are going to go ahead and introduce and share a little bit about what they do. You can go ahead and get us started, Anna.
Hi, thanks, Jill. It's good to be here. My name is Anna Haslinsky, and I'm in DC. I live and work here in Philadelphia, currently from home. But most of you probably know my colleague, Rob Montgomery, who is the amigo of Paul on the Dental Amigos podcast, and probably from a lot of our resources that we put out on yourdentallawyer.com. I'm an attorney that handles a lot of different matters, and we mostly represent dentists in practice acquisitions and sales, but I also handle a lot of employment and HR matters as well.
Great, Anna. Thanks so much. So glad to have you. Okay, great. Lonnie.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Lonnie Grass. I am the founder of Wave of Women, waveofwomen.com. I am a personal brand and life coach. And what I do is I work with women. I have programs that specialize in career and leadership, and a signature program called Women of Influence in Dentistry. And so excited to be here. Thank you, Jill.
That's great. Thanks so much, Lonnie. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get started. We, before this event, received a lot of great questions for our panelists. And we'll go ahead and get started. So the first question we have is for Anna. As an employee, what are my options if I'm unable to work due to health or personal reasons, like caring for a child who's home from school?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jill. One thing that I'll just say to get out of the way first, all of the questions that I'm getting these days, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching have, that are employment related, there's a big disclaimer I must give that, none of this should really be taken as legal advice. All of your situations are going to be incredibly fact specific. And of course, this is changing all on a regular basis as well, with all of these new laws and updates to existing laws that are coming out. So we're in a totally new world with interpreting how all of these things fit together. But to your specific question, we do have some new added laws that have come down at the federal level, and then of course some updates that have been done state-wise as well. First, everyone's probably heard about the new federal laws that have passed, the Families First Act and then the CARES Act, which expanded FMLA leave and then also provided for mandatory paid sick leave that would apply to pretty much all employers. In that case, you could potentially take paid leave to stay home and care for a child, or if you are sick or caring for somebody who has symptoms or has been advised to stay home because of coronavirus. In addition to that, there's also a lot of state and local leave laws. If you're in a state that has paid leave, for example, you might already have had the opportunity to take that for different situations. And a lot of the states and municipalities are updating these laws to make sure that they apply to coronavirus. In addition to that, just to keep this alphabet soup going of all of these complicated laws, we also have other laws that were already in existence, like disability protections, FMLA, that's family medical leave. And then of course, people have also heard with the CARES Act, if you have been laid off or if your job is not going to be available to you, you could potentially stay on unemployment and continue to collect, even if you have a situation that might otherwise exclude you from getting unemployment, such as if you're staying home because you've lost your job due to COVID, you need to stay home to care for your child because their place of school is closed. So there's a lot of different options out there. And I think for everyone, it's going to be important that you get familiar with what is exactly the situation in your state, in your city, and then of course, what sort of options your employer is going to offer you to help cope in this situation.
Okay, great. Wow, Anna, thank you. It's a lot of good information there for people. Good thing we're recording this, so if people need to go back and reference any of that, because
right now,
which is great though that you were able to touch on so much of that. Just to backtrack a little bit, Lonnie and Anna, if you could share with us a little bit about what professional development wellness would mean to you, or a little bit about it to our audience, both in the dental industry and outside the dental industry, just kind of like what professional wellness is to you when you hear that.
I can start. Well, professional wellness, to me, it just means confidence. You know, when you're in professional development is always important, but I think the end outcome of having more professional development is that you become more confident in whatever it is that you're taking training on. Okay. So it's something that I highly value, and it's actually been one of the pillars, you know, the thing that drives me forward through my whole career.
Yeah, I can see how closely professional development and confidence would tie together. So that's great. Anna, do you want to add anything about what professional wellness would mean to you in your field?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a lawyer, so it's finding ways to juggle a lot of the demands of the career, and especially right now with everything that's changing, and using a lot of those great resources that are out there to manage and sort of navigate all of this. But also what Lonnie said, having confidence in what you're navigating, and then of course, you know, taking advantage of what's out there to help you get through it.
Yeah, no, I think of professional wellness as being such like a balance involving all those things, with confidence and learning more and utilizing the resources that are out there to help you grow professionally and kind of to stay well without sounding trite. Okay, great. Another question we have is, what advice do you have, Lonnie, for female dentists or male dentists who are looking for a strong mentor to help them with their professional wellness?
Well, I get that question a lot. I think a lot of people really want to find a mentor. I'm trying to develop a program to connect people women who want to mentor other dentists starting out or wherever they are. It's interesting. I think the first thing you should do is reach through your network. And that means social media, LinkedIn, reach out, or maybe, you know, well, something like this would even be an event that you can reach out to somebody to see if they want to be a mentor. But how you do, you don't come out and say, hey, do you want to be my mentor? Because that just seems big. And most people will say, gosh, you know, I don't really know they don't know what you expect, and they don't know how much time you're expecting. So you're not going to get a good result. What you should do is reach out to somebody, ask them questions, but know what it is that you want to be mentored on specifically. Okay, so if you're trying to find a mentor, let's say you're a a newish dentist and you want to find a woman dentist to show you how to be successful in running the practice or increasing production, know what that is. Ask those questions to candidates who could be mentors for you. Get as much information as you can, build that rapport, and then say, hey, how would you feel if I followed up with you in a month and continued the conversation? I may have other questions. I really appreciate your time. And then just start building a relationship from there. So it's more organic than it's like, hey, do you want to be my mentor? So I think relationships are important.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because sometimes a person who's being asked if they want to be a mentor doesn't even know that they wear that hat of being a mentor. So, I mean, I work in a healthcare field as well, and sometimes, like you said, it happens organically, and taking a more natural approach to it is great, but kind of persevering to find the right person to ask those questions to is fantastic.
One more thing I want to tell you, that's to be a little clear on mentorship and people that you follow. So one of the mistakes that you can do is taking advice from too many different people. So be clear in what you want to be mentored in. So there's a difference between somebody who's like a mentor, who's basically like, you've already got clear what it is that you want, and then you talk to the person who's already been down that road, who's willing to share with you. And then there are other people that you watch maybe on social media that you admire. But maybe through social media, like, oh, this person seems really great. But if you taking the advice from your mentor and then also looking at social media and saying, oh, I just want to do what this person's doing, then you're going to get confused and it will actually stall your progress. So you should get clear on who it is that's a mentor and who it is just something that you admire.
That's a really good point, to try to divide both of that. That's great in your head before seeking someone. Great. I'd like to pause a second and welcome Dr. Desiree Yazdan to our panel.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, thanks. We're just in the midst of answering some questions on professional development, and we look forward to hearing from you. I'm going to go ahead with our next question, and it could apply to anybody on the panel want to answer. What are some strategies that we can use to make patients feel comfortable coming back to the dental office, whether on social media or through other forms of communication? If anyone wants to share a strategy to build the confidence in the patient.
I'm happy to answer if you guys are okay with that. So I think talking about your new protocols that you're taking and just sharing interest in the fact that you are worried about the safety and you do care about the safety of not just yourself and your staff, but also the patient, and actually showing them like what you're doing, what your new PPE protocol looks like, what your new like patient intake looks like. For example, if you're having patients wait downstairs, and calling the office when they arrive so that you can limit the amount of people in your waiting area, like sharing things like that, and even putting those things out on social, like posting about it, like, oh, we're having our patients call us, or now we're having our front office staff wear whatever like PPE equipment they'll be wearing, or also any equipment that you've purchased. Like I've purchased equipment that helps reduce aerosol in the office, just by the procedures I do. So sharing those types of things as well, that I think that's really useful, and people seem to understand that when you're putting that out there, you actually do care.
That's really great advice, because I feel like right now sometimes people get a little information overloaded and they're getting comfortable in their home with that information, but as they transition from their home to the outside world, they'll be receptive of more information to help build their confidence. So even though at an information plateau, it's going to be a whole nother stage of learning when we transition from our homes. That's great. Another question here. Someone would like to know, legally, what would be the ramifications if one of our patients or staff gets sick with COVID? I didn't know if anyone was comfortable answering that.
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that. That's a good question. So again, we're sort of in a new world here, and we're going to see exactly how this plays out. I think we already are, unfortunately, seeing claims come through related to spreading COVID and all of that stuff. But from a patient perspective, the hope would be that your malpractice policy would cover it. For those that are listening, if you haven't reached out to your malpractice carrier already, I recommend that you do that and get additional guidance and protocol from them as to what you should be doing right now. A lot of them have helpful forms and tips speaking about things that you should be sharing with your patients about what sort of protocols you're putting in place. Your carrier probably has some good advice on that. If it is your employees that get sick because of COVID, they probably would have a workers' comp claim with all of this. So, there are different existing legal protocols that are already out there to handle this. It's just that we're going to see a new type of claim dealing with these types of things.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anna. That makes a lot of sense. So next up, someone has asked us, what are the strongest trends that we anticipate with the transition back to work with regard to social media and educating our patients? I apologize. I think we touched upon that already. One question that someone said is, how is the best way to talk to an owner of the practice about introducing social media strategies if this is something missing from the practice, such as a Facebook page or Instagram account with pertinent information?
I think actually just bringing information to them, like even if you have a successful practice, it's still important to be on there because it's how you can communicate with people. It's how you could stay top of mind. So for example, patients that are overdue for their cleanings, or they just, whatever, they've been putting off that filling for a really long time, but when they see you constantly coming up in their feed, they're constantly reminded about it. Like, oh, I really need to get that done. So I think sharing the information, like, I know your practice might be successful and it's not my practice, but we should really consider using it because it will stay top of mind for our patients. We can communicate. And I don't mean, giving dental advice or anything like that, but just in general, like communicate, staying up to date. This is what we're doing in our practice now, or these are what we're working on, and patients can find themselves and relate to those procedures that they want or they need to have done, and then they'll be more wanting to come in and do it. And just sharing that knowledge with the owner of the practice, I think would really help an associate be able to talk about that.
Okay, great. Great. And also, I know that you have a lot of different kits and ways that people can get some basic baseline confidence and knowledge to manage social media platforms for practice. So that, like, sometimes getting more approach the owner with it, kind of having some penciled in strategy in your mind of how you can help with that process, instead of saying like our Facebook page needs so much help. And just having a few ways that you can then help with the problem instead of just stating the problem, I think will be really powerful.
Exactly. That's a great suggestion.
Okay, great. We have another question here. People were asking, with the job market possibly being unsure for dentistry this summer, what are some things that someone can do to help position themselves for a job as a new grad or someone making a clinic change?
I can answer that. That's a really good question. That's something I get a lot of questions on, especially with people who may be changing clinics or people who are going into getting their first job in dentistry. We're a little unsure of, what production demands are going to be. And so that's a great question. One of the things that it's such a big answer, but one of the things I like to focus on is LinkedIn as a great resource for that. I recommend, if you are not in LinkedIn, I recommend you get on it and use it as a really good tool. Number one, it is like an online resume. So you can post your picture, you can write about yourself, write about your experiences, your volunteering, everything you have on there. So it's on there so people have a personal glimpse of you. And then actually use a platform. So, and I'm saying this as in addition to the things you would normally do, which is like working your network and saying, hey, who do you know that is hiring, and asking your dental reps, like, what clinics are hiring. So we're talking about LinkedIn here. So, get on LinkedIn and in the search bar, put in DMD. DMD will bring up a search of dentists, and it will automatically default to your area and show you a bunch of dentist names. Okay, so you can reach out to these dentists, and what I recommend is a more of a personal approach. Is just, if it's a clinic that you think may be hiring, maybe it's a corporate chain or a private dentist that you may know, or somebody you might be interested in finding out about, reach out to them, private message them, email them. A lot of times emails are on there, and then just ask them questions, connect with them and ask them questions about their field, what they love about dentistry, build that rapport, and then ask them, hey, do you know someone who could be hiring this summer? I'm looking for a job. If they're hiring, they will self-select themselves. Okay, and so if not, you can say, hey, would you pass my resume on to someone else? The other thing real quickly I'll say about LinkedIn is you can, on that search bar, you can put in, if you put DMD and then you move the search to jobs, it'll actually pop up a bunch of dental jobs for you. And when you click on the job, it'll have an apply button. So it's amazing. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this. So especially, and it will help if you're flexible about moving around, but it's a really powerful tool.
That's great. I think sometimes it's really great advice, Lonnie. I think maybe people sometimes forget about the LinkedIn option. I know we have great things with Facebook and connectivity and Instagram and all these other platforms, but LinkedIn is a really great hidden treasure. And again, I help with the Job Connect program at Dental Nachos. So if anyone wanted to send me their LinkedIn profile or to look over some of that stuff for them, I'd be glad to do that and give some feedback. So jobconnect@dentalnachos.com for that portion. Okay, great. Another question we have is, so let's see. On a dental professional Instagram account, if you have one for your practice, is it best to just connect with adult patients, or is it okay to connect with anybody? I guess pediatrics is the question primarily. If you have like younger patients and they want to connect to your professional page.
I mean, it's okay if they're connected to you. I just wouldn't really, I would never give any kind of dental advice to anyone, adult or a pediatric patient. As far as connecting, if it's like connecting with a pediatric patient, I would do it in way of post. I wouldn't really do it through direct messages or anything. I would do it by what you're posting. If they comment oh, this video is really funny, or I like this post, it's okay to be oh, thanks, glad you like it. But I wouldn't necessarily sorry guys, take it to DM. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to mostly keep it to adults, but it's okay to create a little bit of content. If you treat, teenagers, it's okay to create content that kind of speaks to them, but you want to be mostly kind of speaking to the adults.
Okay. That's a good answer. We have a question here. As an associate, what are some things I could do to protect myself if the lead dentist is not changing anything with regard to their PPE protocols? No face shields, no gowns, no N95s.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's unfortunately a problem that we're seeing a lot, partly because there's a shortage of a lot of these things and people are having a hard time getting them, but also because there seems to be a lot of misinformation floating around with all of this. At a basic level, your employers do have the obligation to give you a safe work environment under OSHA. Some of the guidelines that have been put out by OSHA and CDC are not actually mandated law or regulations yet. So people are still getting up to speed with following them. But I would say the first thing you should do is talk to your employer if you feel like your work environment's unsafe, because of course, nobody wants to be the outbreak source, right, for any of this, just as a PR perspective. But then on top of that, a lot of states are also mandating changes to offices as well. In Pennsylvania, for example, where I'm sitting, the Department of Health has all these new mandates about actually requiring social distancing for offices that are open, requiring people to wear masks, not just in health facilities. So if your office is not following those mandates that are decided by the state, they could actually get in a lot of trouble with that by way of penalties and losing licensings and things like that. So I would say talk to your employer. If they're not willing to listen, then you may have some other avenues to complain confidentially to the Department of Health or to OSHA, but that's going to be a much more difficult road to go down if it comes to that.
Gotcha. And then a good segue question that we're getting is building the confidence in the employees when they return to work. How can I help my employees be comfortable about coming back? So the initial question was from an associate concerned about the equipment, and then how could the associate and the owner dentist educate their staff and team so that they do feel that confidence? I think part of it, sharing that just with your whole community. So if somebody were to post on Instagram about what the strides their practice is making, I think obviously you would see that as well. But any other feedback you guys have?
I think also just telling our employees that, you know what, we have always treated everybody like they have an infectious disease. We've always taken the protocols. Like, we don't know if somebody walking in might have been exposed to tuberculosis, or if they have anything that they're not telling us about. It's like when I ask my patients, like, oh, okay, so do you smoke? No, I don't smoke. And then through questions, it's like, oh, well, I only smoke when I drink. Oh, but I do drink like once a day, so we treat everyone as if they've always had something and they're just not telling us. So this is no different. We're taking all the precautions, just as we always have, and just being a little extra picky now that we have COVID in the air.
Yeah, I would say on top of that, communication is key with everybody. So definitely make sure that you're communicating with your staff about what increased protocols you're doing, following those CDC guidelines, those Department of Health guidelines, all of that stuff, to make sure that you're complying with what you are supposed to be doing, and just making people comfortable. If your employees are coming back and are not confident that the workplace is a safe place to be, then that they're going to be distracted, and it's not going to be a great working environment for everybody. So getting actual plans in place. And like I said, some states are actually requiring you to develop these plans and share them with your employees. So it's making sure that you're up to date on all these guidelines and new rules, and then communicating it with everybody so everyone feels comfortable coming back to work.
Okay, great, Anna. Great.
And I just want to add one little thing about communication. And those are great thoughts. For our team, so I don't think I mentioned that earlier, we also own a dental practice in Portland. So when we were talking to our teams about coming back, we did a lot of communicating with them about, what we're implementing, but also had one-to-one conversations with them about how comfortable they are personally feeling, because how comfortable someone is feeling is not like just a flat, okay, we're all good. I mean, it really differs depending on your risk factors. So having that one-on-one conversation is like, how do you feel about coming back? And just meeting them where they are, so they really feel confidence coming back.
That's a great point. Especially, it's really advisable, I'm sure, to do that to get ahead of things, so to speak, instead of have everyone back and then have some of these mountains kind of peak.
Yes.
During that time. So sort of getting ahead of it to get that information. That's great. So we do have time for one more question. I apologize, time flies. We are getting some questions specifically about FMLA that will, it says here, I understand that if your employee needs to take care of a person with COVID-19, then you must provide 2 weeks of pay so that employee can take care of that person. But after that person with COVID recovers, that employee will need to self-isolate for an additional 2 weeks due to exposure. Is that employee also being paid? This is a really great question. For another 2 weeks by the employer under the FMLA because they need to self-isolate as well?
Potentially, yes.
Oh, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So these the sick leave and the FMLA leave could overlap. The expanded FMLA leave generally only covers needing to stay home for childcare purposes. But if you're also eligible for FMLA as it stood before all of this started, you might be eligible for that. With all of this stuff, it gets very complicated, especially with interactions with state leave laws. So you should probably talk to a lawyer and get the specific question ironed out for all of these people.
Gotcha. Yeah, that does it's an interesting question, just understanding and especially respecting the self-isolation rules. Yeah, especially if people are respecting the 2 weeks isolation after caring for someone for 2 weeks. So want to know all that information so that they make sure that they're covered, so to speak. Okay, great, guys. Any last minute tidbits each of you would like to add or share? If you want to take a minute each to share anything about, Dr. Yazdim, to start this segment, we talked about professional development, wellness, and kind of what that means to you when you hear that terminology. I didn't know if you wanted to add a little bit about
fun.
That means.
I always think wellness I don't know how you guys took this, but like really taking care of yourself and figuring out what it is that you want first, and how you want to run things and how you want to feel, just even going into any day, and then taking the steps from that place of how you're feeling in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. Especially, I like the idea of wellness about thinking about yourself first, kind of like that airplane philosophy of getting your mask on before helping others, and making sure you're good and feeling professionally well before outreaching to your practice or your teammates. It's really smart to kind of get yourself aligned in wellness first. So
yeah, because I feel like if you're caught up in your own thoughts and fears or whatever it is, then you're gonna you're going to be taking that energy into whatever you're doing for the day or with your employees or staff or whatever it is. So if you just kind of like take a moment, take care of yourself and deal with your own wellness, then you're working with a clean slate.
Okay, great. Fantastic. One last thing, guys, our team is sharing in the chat the best way for our attendees to reach out to you. If you want to just share really quickly one way, whether it's your Instagram or your website or the best email, if you just want to verbally say it, and then we'll drop that as well and then go on to the next segment. If you want to start, Anna, maybe if people have additional questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. You can either find me at my email, Anna, that's ANNA at rmontgomery-law.com, or on our website, yourdentallawyer.com.
Fantastic. Thanks. Lonnie?
Yes, you can. I'll put it in the chat again, but you can reach me at join us at waveofwomen.com. Follow us on Instagram, waveofwomen_dentistry. So follow us on Instagram and you can message me there. That'd be a great, easy way to reach me.
Okay, great. Dr. Yazdan?
I love Instagram, so just at Dr. Yazdan, or if you guys want to send me an email, you could just send it to info@dryazdan.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I wish we had more time. Zoom time really kind of zoomed by. We are going to have Mary Goodman leading our mental wellness segment. So if you guys could just hang tight, we'll get everyone on here for our next part. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I'm Mary Goodman, also known as Mrs. Nacho. I am the marketing director at Dental Nachos. I help coordinate all our social media, our awesome video production, our graphic design, and some of our ad campaigns, as well as help with all the HR things in our company. I have here with me 3 experts, so we're very lucky today. We have Brandy Davis, who is a parenting coach. We have Maggie Augustin, who is a practicing dentist and speaks and writes on mental wellness as a dentist. And we have Dr. Valerie Bronstein, who is a psychologist, owner and psychologist at phillypsychology.com. I would love for the 3 of you to introduce yourselves to our guests. Dr. Mag, oh yes. Just unmute yourselves so that they can hear you. Perfect. Brandy, would you like to go first?
Sure. So hi, I'm Brandy, and basically I work with families to help them create the home that they envision for themselves. So it's their personalized journey, it's completely confidential, and it really is your safe space. So some people come wanting to deal with just bedtime, and some people come because they're just not feeling the way they thought they would feel in their home and about parenting. So we work together to make your home better communication, like have better communication, have more teamwork, and also so you guys have more fun.
That's really awesome. And I know you do some webinars on this online as well.
I do webinars. I do one-on-one coaching. I write a blog. I have a podcast. I just try different ways to reach everybody in the way that's easiest for them.
That's really awesome. Dr. Maggie, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, my name is Maggie Augustin. I'm a general dentist in the suburbs of Chicago. Our website is www.myhappytooth.com. I am passionate about bringing attention to mental illness in dentistry and am exhaustingly honest about my experiences and growth as a result of having lived with and faced depression on many different levels. A small disclosure here, I am not a mental health professional, unlike Dr. Valerie. I am an expert in my own life and having dealt with mental illness within the landscape of my own life. And I'm always happy to share my struggles and ways I've learned to overcome them so that you can hopefully learn from my experiences and incorporate it into your own arsenal and applying it into difficult times.
That's so awesome. Thanks, Maggie. And then Dr. Bronstein.
Hi, I'm Dr. Valerie Bronstein, and I am a clinical psychologist, and I specialize in working with people with anxiety. So I can help right now, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much, guys. Well, we have a lot of great questions that we have from some of our guests that have been sent in. Our first one is, what are some things we can do to transition to this new normal we're in right now?
So one of the, my favorite thing to do in transitioning into the new normal is, before getting out of bed, before you even reach for your phone, to set out an intention for the day. Not what you'll do, but who you're going to be. And for me, I have been setting out an intention to be more compassionate. I have a really hard time with that. So if you set that intention within your mind, it'll ease your struggle. The second thing to realize is this is going to be a time fraught with challenges. And just like we went into COVID, coming out of COVID, there's going to be a roller coaster of emotions: guilt, sadness, powerlessness, and fear. One thing to realize is that we are a human being, and these emotions are part of being human, and they're also part of facing change. One thing that you want to remember is that these emotions do not define your reality. They're simply emotions, and you can kind of put them together in your head and try to look at them as not defining your reality, but rather facing them dead on. One of the things that I have done in getting ready to go back to work is, and some people really don't like what I've done, but for me, it's worked really well. I made a list of all the things that I'm afraid of. And then I made a separate list of all the things that I'm looking forward to. And then I made a third list of how to overcome the fears if they start to take over my psyche. And that's something that I've really held on to, a list of those fears and knowing how I'm going to overcome them, so that at the time of struggle, I've almost prepared myself before in facing what I'm about to do and about to face.
Wow, I really love that, Maggie. So many good things. Taking a moment before you get out of bed. I feel like so often the first thing you do is just, like go or grab your phone. But I love that about setting an intention. And then I love your idea about actually writing down your fears and also reminding yourself of what you are looking forward to. I think that's great, and kind of making a plan for yourself and remembering that things are fleeting emotions. It's not like your permanent reality. That's all really great. Dr. Bronstein, what about some specific mental wellness exercises or strategies we can incorporate during this time in general, and also dealing with all these emotions?
Great. Well, I think what Maggie did is wonderful. And I think that, you do want to remember that you can't take care of other people before you take care of yourself. So I don't know if you say this, Brandy, but a lot of times when we're working with parents, we say, put your own oxygen mask on first. Mm-hmm. So that's right. So that's kind of what we want to say to you guys and to anyone. Make sure you have your own plan, like Maggie does first, and so that you can take care of yourself. You can't take care of anyone else unless you take care of yourself. Some things to do are really to speak up and don't hold it in. So I have spoken to some frontline workers that were experiencing some trauma type symptoms and holding it in. And some of their advice is really, it's important to speak up and to have a place to vent, because if you can join a support group or have a support or create a support group, because you'll realize that you're not the only one experiencing these feelings or these thoughts. And that's really important. So the feeling of universality, and that other people are feeling and experiencing what you're experiencing and having some of the same symptoms, is really important for well-being. And so after you label it and you express it, you want to use your decision-making skills, like your higher order thinking. So that would be like what your coping plan is. And you would do breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing or controlled breathing. Controlled breathing is, you inhale 4, you pause 4, and you exhale 4. Progressive muscle relaxation is extremely helpful and evidence-based. There's a lot of free videos online about progressive muscle relaxation. But it's basically tightening and tensing your muscles in a systematic way so that you know when you start to tense, you start to recognize that and you're able to relax. Sensory grounding techniques, mindfulness and meditation, having a list of coping thoughts for typical things that trip you up, and practicing gratitude are just some helpful things that have found to be super effective.
That's so awesome. Thanks, Val. You kind of took it to the next level with some things you can do after you identify your fears, even physically and mentally, and that they're connected. And I know that you do a lot of this with your paid offered online mindfulness classes, which is another great resource.
Right. And we want to remember, I use the risk resource model of anxiety, where, anxiety happens when your perceived risk outweighs the resources that you think you have. So, the trick is to balance the scale so that you perceive your own resources, internal and external, as more than what the risk is. So you want to be able to feel like you can do it. So if you think about it that way, you can keep building your internal and external go-tos, and so you'll feel less anxiety and more capable.
That's really great. I'd like to talk about our kids a little bit. I know I've seen with our kids some more frequent behaviors, kind of tantrums and nightmares and being extra clingy, which I'm sure are related to, they're not in a new normal either, being stuck at home and doing school on Zoom and, not really seeing any friends. How can we support them during this time?
I think, a lot of communication helps, especially if you have, obviously if you have verbal kids, and that goes for the little ones too. I work with, I have a school that has 2 to 5 year olds, so I know what they can do. So I like to keep talking about it. If I notice that someone's super clingy, instead of going right, to discipline or getting super mad or just being like, I need space, I'm gonna be like, okay, why don't we sit down and try to figure out, although it happens and don't feel bad if you do, but try to talk it out. Is there something that you need? What can I support you with? Do you wanna read a book together? So maybe instead of pulling on my pant leg or climbing up my shirt, because they do that, you can say, listen, if you want my attention, if you're needing something, they may not even know what they need, but they just have a need, they can ask you to read a book. They can ask you for a hug. They can ask you just to sit next to them. So what you're going to do is talk to them and give them specific strategies, or help, or even have them give you specific strategies, because sometimes they come up with really crazy things that you never would have thought of, and that's what they want to do and make them feel better. But in the end, it'll also help you, because I agree. I talk a lot about filling your cup, and I say a lot of times, if you give all to your kids, you'll have nothing left to give. So the pulling on the pant leg is the thing, and like climbing all over you, that's the thing that makes you crazy and makes you mad. So if you can kind of talk about it and change the dynamics and give them a different way to ask for what they need, and that can go for big ones too. Hey, I noticed you're screaming at me all day. I think you're missing something. Let's talk about what you need. What do you need from me? And then it works out better for everyone. But no one's going to be perfect all the time. So forgive yourself.
That's so great. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes they just want attention,
Mm-hmm.
which is tricky for, a lot of parents are working at home right now. And
right. Yeah.
It's definitely a balance. Dr. Val, do you have any insight as a parent and psychologist as well?
I think she's right on. I mean, that I concur. I guess as now they have a lot. They do have on the CDC. They do have children's books now that explain what coronavirus is, so that's helpful. Also making like a list of things they can control, or like you can control what snack you have, you can control what clothes you wear, so they feel like some security and some control. Obviously, normal things are like we always recommend, like keeping a routine, and that kind of thing is helpful now more than ever. But again, give yourself slack and just do what you can when you can.
That's good advice. We have seen those coronavirus books and printed them out and read them together. Are there any good feeling books, recommendations to get them to open up when we can tell they're having a bad day that you could
Valerie, do you wanna
recommend?
start with this one?
Oh yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I like, so there's a few different ones. I really like Alexander and the No Good, Terrible, Horrible, totally butchering that title, but I love that book. Very Bad Day. I think that's a really great one. I think When Sophie Gets Angry is good. I think The Way That I Feel, and there's another one that's a little hard to find, but my co-teacher read it the other day. It's called Anne's Anger, and it's ANHS, Anger, and it was phenomenal. It was just about going to your room, and there was like, the feeling was like a monster, and playing with it and living in the moment of how you feel, not squishing it, and that's how you work through it. And the other thing they could do is they can make their own book. I mean, my guys love making books. And it doesn't matter if they're writing or not writing, but they could get that out. And I know that our guys get a lot of their feelings out through art. And that's their own, they kind of do it themselves. Somebody was having nightmares for a while, and so they started to draw pictures about nightmares, and then everybody was drawing pictures about nightmares. And then the nightmares turned funny. So sometimes just even, I mean, I'm not an art therapist, but just using art therapy, make your own book, and you can read it to us, and it'll help us. So I really like to really get kids involved in the healing of themselves or the problem solving of those things, because it's really important, because at some point you're not going to be there. And I don't mean that morbidly, like when they go out the door to go to school, or, if you're out at work. So it's really good to help kids fix some things and cope on their own. So those are just some books that I liked.
Oh, those sound great. So I have a good question. How can we deal with some of these specific fears our new normal has brought about, such as, going back to work and practicing in an environment that feels so different? All of a sudden, you're wearing PPE and your staff has to wear PPE, and, being worried about staff members getting sick themselves or not knowing if they're sick, or, managing fewer patients and perhaps fewer staff. What are some things we can do about these anxieties, or maybe some of the things on the list?
So I can't talk about practice management in terms of dealing some of that, because that's not my areas of expertise, but I can give you an idea of how I deal with some of this stuff. Because when we come home from work, or before we go to work, we're going to be fraught with a lot of anxiety about the change. So one of the ways that I deal with that is figure out what you love to do and do it more. Whether it's taking a walk, whether it's playing with your kid, whether it's watching TV, you have to engage yourself into something to release the anxiety and the fear and the stress. And the best way for you to do that is to do something that you love. It could be writing, it could be watching TV, it could be drawing, anything like that. The more you do it, the more you're going to find that the stress lessens. Another thing that I do is I figure out what I can do to reset. So if I'm in the midst of anxiety, one thing, and this is really strange, that I know that can reset me is taking a shower. For some reason, there's some sort of a Zen thing with the water and being away from everybody in the shower that helps reset me. And I think Brandy can speak about this a little bit more, but my finding is that no matter how guilty you feel as a parent, take a break, walk away, go into a room by yourself and try and de-stress. Now, doing that can bring about a lot of guilt about not spending time with your kids. But when your kids realize that you take care of yourself, this is what they're going to learn going into adulthood. When they're going to see that mom is overwhelmed, and instead of being anxious and lashing out, mom is going into the bathroom or into the room for 5 or 10 minutes to calm down, you're going to be a better parent, no matter how guilty you feel about not being there with your kid 24/7. And your anxiety is going to lessen because you'll take that break. I think it's a great learning experience for ourselves and to teach our kids, no matter, and I realize that the first thing that's going to come to your mind is I feel so darn guilty that I have to take this time for myself. But it's actually good for everybody all the way around.
That's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's because also if you are feeling that way, you're probably going to lash out in a way that you didn't want to do, which you would really feel guilty about.
Right.
And I do tell people that it's not actually your job to keep your kids happy all the time, because that's an impossible task and it puts a lot of pressure on you. And that's not life anyway. So it's good that they understand that other people have needs and need to tend to themselves, because you want them to do that when they go, you know, out there too, to understand, oh, I don't have to give all to everyone. I can take a minute too. So I really think it's so important to take care of yourself.
That's great. What are some ways we can reduce our coworkers or employees' anxieties as they're coming back to work?
Well, one thing I would say would be like kind of if we're on the route of talking about children and parenting, you know, it's really important that they can get their thoughts and feelings out and that they can feel heard. So I think that employees and coworkers, they want to know that, you know what they, you know about what you're hearing them. And you want to create multiple formal and informal feedback channels. So there needs to be increased communication at this time so that people feel more supported with the increased stress. So the messaging is like, we're all in this together. We want support plans for all the coworkers. We want support plans for people who get sick and for their families as well, so that people do feel protected and safe. And that, you know, they're going to have be very clear about what protective equipment they're going to have, and, you know, that what resources they have, and make sure that they feel cared for, and make sure that they know what's in their control, which is, you know, that a lot of getting infected by COVID could be greatly reduced if they meticulously follow the relevant recommendations, like the cross-infection control protocols. And if they, with those additional precautions, if they, you know, have the coping skills to, you know, the coping plan, they'll remain calm and focused, and just, you know, make sure that everyone has everything they need, from basic things to food, healthy food. They stay hydrated, you know, because people might go into like a kind of a quick survival mode and forget about what they need, basically. And then that kind of creates a cycle. So you want to make sure, keep more water around, like take care of each other, remind people to drink water, remind people to eat, like you kind of become a family now.
That's really great. And a good takeaway is that communication is really more important than ever right now with employees and those around you, and making sure that they, you know, you might not have all the answers for them, or you might not have communicated that, but if there's good communication between the two of you, they can ask you and you can respond, and letting them know that you do care and are thinking of them and their well-being. What are some things that we can do to mentally be prepared to go back to work and to prepare our children for that time as well?
I think that telling them ahead of time, but not super ahead of time, especially the younger they are, because you don't want it to be like, hey, in a month we're going to go back to work and I'm not going to be here, and then they're all a month and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much to think about. But maybe about a week before, I love a good family meeting, pop some popcorn, whatever, and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to be going back to work, and be specific, because kids like to know exactly what's going on. So who's going to be with you? What's your schedule going to be? What's going to be different, and what's going to be the same? And it's really important to let them know what's going to be the same, because that's something they really care about. But also what's going to be different. And you can also, you know, ask them if they need anything, what will make it easier, what are their thoughts on it. And maybe, and I know it's going to be hard because everyone's going to be exhausted, because re-entry, I really feel like it's going to take us all down. But I do think that you can say, after the first week of work, maybe we can celebrate not a big deal. And we can have movie night and pizza, you know, in the living room, and, you know, something that they can look forward to that doesn't take so much off of you guys and the people who have to go back to work, because honestly, it's going to be exhausting. So I think a lot of communication, letting them know what's the same and what's different, asking them if they have any questions, and then putting a little bit of something simple that's exciting for them so that they know that they will see you again, that all of this time now it's not all going to go back. Because I hope we all kind of learn, although this is all horrible, that maybe we need to slow down a little bit. We're all moving a little too fast.
That's great. A question that I know is on a lot of dentists' minds are, you know, when they reopen, will the patients come? Will the patients be anxious themselves about going to the dentist? What are some things we can do to reduce our patients' anxiety about coming back to us?
Well, one thing, I mean, you can always go back to that risk resource model. So again, you're thinking about what are the patients thinking their risks are? What are the patients thinking their internal and external resources are? So, you know, for them, you want to figure out, you know, you can ask like open-ended questions, you know, taking care of these urgent dental issues. How could they help you achieve what's most important to you in your life? Kind of like use some motivational interviewing questions to get them to realize why they would want to do this and make a clear decision instead of just a fear-based decision that might put them more in jeopardy in the long term. And, you know, you can, you know, if a patients are what ifing, what if this, what if that, then you can always turn that into an if this, then. So that would explain to them the procedures. Again, you know, the resources, the external resources, so like the PPE equipment, the cross-infection controls, like that how you're gonna bring them into the office, how many people are gonna be in the office, so that they also know that you care and that you've put a lot of effort in to make sure that them and you are extremely safe.
That's great. And then going back to communication, would you recommend, you know, communicating with patients ahead of time, like when you're reopening, sending an email perhaps to patients? Dr. Maggie, have you thought a little bit about what you're going to do with communicating to patients about, you know, PPE and all that?
So there's a number of things that we're doing. One is we are emailing everyone a letter of when we're going to reopen and what to expect. And then second is we put in an additional menu bar for COVID questions, frequently asked questions, what to expect. But I think the most important thing that I'm going to plan on doing, and again, I'm not practice management specialist, but this is just kind of common sense for what I think will work, is before we start work on June 1st, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to really stress compassion. So these fears are very real. They're real for us and they're real for our patients. And the best way to make a patient feel comfortable, in my opinion, is to really normalize and validate their fears. And let them know that it is natural to have these fears. It's okay to have these fears. We are compassionate about what you're feeling, and this is what we're going to do to help you keep safe. Do you have any other questions? How can we help? We are here for you. Your safety is our priority, and I think compassion is the most important part of the equation here. Making the patient feel at ease about what they're feeling. It's okay to be feeling this. We're all feeling this, and this is what we're going to do to help you get over your fear. This is what we're going to do to make you feel comfortable.
That's really great insight. Well, we are actually running out of time on our segment, and I still have so many questions, so we'll have to have the three of you back sometime. I'd like to use the last minute to just have each of you just again throw out how people can contact with you, if they have any questions, and how to follow you on social media, or be able to keep you as a resource.
So my website is brandy-davis.com. That's pretty much my email, brandy@brandy-davis.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Parent Partner Brandy. So you can find me there, ask me questions, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Thanks. Dr. Maggie.
You can find me on Dental Nachos anytime. I'm on Facebook. I'm not as active as I used to be because people are a little cranky now and I'm trying to avoid them. But you can find me on Messenger. You can find me, I'm under Maggie Augustin on Facebook. You can find me on the website. My cell phone number's on there, myhappytooth.com. So feel free to reach out anyway.
Thank you. And Dr. Bronstein.
I'm on phillypsychology.com is the website, and the number's there and the email, and we're accepting patients, and it's through teletherapy right now, and we're also using a reduced sliding scale fee. So, if people are having difficulty for financial reasons due to the COVID, we're more than happy to help you anyway. We're here for you.
That's so awesome. Thanks so much, guys. It was really great talking to you, and I learned a lot myself from all of your insight. So thank you. We have next our segment on physical wellness with Ariel, our client service director. Hey, Ariel.
Hey, we can have, perfect. Awesome. So I am Ariel, the Client Service Director at Dental Nachos, and I am here with Joy, Nikki, and Julia. I'll let them say a few words about themselves. Joy, did you want to start off? Just tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Joy Sidargis. I'm the registered dietitian, excuse me, and owner at The Joy of Nutrition. I am based out of Delaware County, PA. I accept most health insurances, and I am accepting new clients right now, doing everything virtually. Normally, I meet my clients in person.
Awesome. And Nikki, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Nikki Loletta, and I live in South Jersey and currently own a company called Hands at Home, and we bring wellness and massage and skincare to everyone in their homes and in the office. Obviously, we're not able to do that right now, so I've been busy doing other things, trying to bring wellness to people without having to physically work on them until we get word that we're back in. So, and thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And Julia, do you want to tell us what you do in the world?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Giordano, and I am a fitness instructor in the Philadelphia area, as well as a dance instructor. I teach mat Pilates, mega reformer Pilates, and like a dance cardio class. It's for everyone. But I've been in the fitness world for about 7 years, doing all sorts of things. So same thing, where obviously gyms, studios are shut down. So managing the new way of the fitness world at home and dealing with clients at home and virtually. And yeah.
Awesome. So I'll start out with a few questions and I'll just kind of rotate through. So one of our first questions is for Joy, and it is, what habits can you or have you gained during quarantine that you can plan to continue or start to do once we get back to a normal day?
So for most of my clients, you know, we talk about food and hydration and things like that, supplements, all that type of thing. But a lot of my clients are saying lately that they have no time to do, well, before quarantine, they were saying they had no time to work out. They were forgetting things because they were rushing out of the house in the morning. So my thing is this, I'm saying to my clients, you know, what habits are you setting up? Are you remembering now every day to take your vitamins? Are you remembering to drink your water first thing in the morning? Are you finding more time to work out for even 15 minutes a day? And how can those things carry over into the non-quarantine time? You know, where can you squeeze in that 15 minutes of exercise that is so important, or more, you know, which usually leads to more?
Yeah. What have they been saying?
Most of them, you know, they say that They're working on it, but a lot of my clients are still at home. So, you know, we haven't kind of cracked over into that new way of life yet when we're out of quarantine. So many of them do say, I can shoot for 2 days a week with exercise, and I refer them to a personal trainer or some sort of online way of working out. The exercise thing I think is really the hardest because it takes the most time.
Yeah, for sure. And then, Nikki, did you just want to tell us a little bit about how you got started and where you think wellness is heading in the next year?
I got started in my business in '08, and I feel like I've been massaging people my whole life, my mom, friends at school. So that led me to become a therapist. And then I furthered my education into skincare. And like I mentioned before, I think that my business has really gotten hit hard, that I physically can't go to people's homes. I can't touch people. So I feel like the way I've been kind of headed is making people feel good at home while they can, and trying to find ways that people feel pampered and loved at home. And I've actually created a self-care Sunday kit to all of my clients, and I've gotten great feedback on that. Just little somethings that you can do for yourself while we're quarantined and we can't go out and get our massages and our facials and all those things that we love. I think wellness is kind of going on what you can do as far as skincare, and not so much treatments that we've gotten. So that's why I've been kind of, you know, trying my hardest to find ways to do that and create things for people to do at home, whether they have kids or they're busy. I know Joy mentioned how hard it is for people to find things to do to make them feel good. But I've noticed that I've been trying to put any little time I can for myself, and I schedule it in. Sunday nights, I do self-care Sunday. Sometimes my kids are in the bathtub and I do it, or sometimes I could be cooking dinner and I still throw that mask on. So I think that's where wellness is going, is people are going to try to find things that they can do on their own.
Awesome. Cool. And then Julia, what are some good like outdoor activities that you can do, but also at the same time, still social distance yourself from everyone around you?
That's a good question. I try to get outside as much as possible, just because a change of environment is always great. It's awful being cooped up in the house 24 hours a day. Obviously, while doing this, still practicing social distancing. So for me, I live in the city, so it's a little hard for me to, when I walk down the street, I need to be a little bit more cautious of who's close to me, who's around, wearing a mask, all sorts of that. I also don't have a front yard or a backyard. My backyard is literally like a slab of concrete, so it's not much of a yard. But if you do have a front yard or backyard, just being able to go outside, sitting on your front lawn, back lawn, maybe exercising outside, going on a walk around your neighborhood. If you have, you know, a neighborhood that you can walk around in, maybe take a couple laps. If you have a bike, going biking, anything to get you outside and moving is just beneficial, whether it's, like I said, going for a walk or doing something a little bit more active.
Perfect. And then for Joy, what is the best way to better understand a ballpark of the different types of foods, not my children, because I don't have any, but this person asked, my children are getting, how much dairy, fruit, and all of that?
So I could go on for an hour about this. I'm going to try to keep this really, really brief. I am not about force feeding children. I am not about restricting children. However, I am about offering healthy options all the time. So keeping in mind things like having a fruit bowl out. If somebody says they're hungry, okay, would you like some Greek yogurt? Would you like some fruit or veggies with hummus dip, or a banana with some peanut butter, or something along those lines? It's also a lot about mimicking the behaviors that you want to see in your children. I mean, I find with my clients, a lot of parents think that someone like a toddler, which I have a 2.5-year-old, they think that they're going to eat a whole lot more than they really are. And I always tell parents, keep in mind that a toddler will probably eat about 1/5 of what you would eat. So once they see that and they kind of picture that, that helps them out a lot. And also, I think a lot of parents are a little bit obsessed with the whole dairy side of things. And I remind parents that doesn't just mean, you know, old school milk, a glass of milk with dinner and breakfast. That could be cheese. That could be, you know, getting some calcium from other sources, like all the different types of milks that are out there that aren't dairy based, cottage cheese, yogurts, all different types of things like that. So it's about balance, and it's also about not restricting too much. So when the rubber band does spring back, your kid is not devouring half of a birthday cake at a birthday party.
I do that on my own as an adult. No, I'm just kidding. Nikki, what are some things people can do to give themselves self-care during this time?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think scheduling time, first of all, you got to get that down first. Scheduling time for yourself and realizing that you need your own time to make yourself feel good, whatever that is, whether it's exercising, skincare. But some things that I think are great are simple bath, a great bath. And if you have a good bathtub and you have the time to do it, I also think that any form of massage, a simple tennis ball that you might have at home is such a great form of massage. It actually feels like fingers. Roll that around, you know, of your wall. Foam rollers, exercising, homemade skincare. Like if you can't get to the store, or you know you don't have the means to do it online, homemade skincare kits are wonderful. I love the new jade rolling obsession, which is actually a really, really old form of massage. Gua sha and jade rolling are ancient forms, but they're just making a trend. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that people are trying this. And anything that makes you feel good in the inside is going to make you feel great on the outside, right? I think that's what we're all trying to do, is have that balance, that between inner and outer is balance. And I think that's where I hope that people are using this time to kind of realize that too, you know, that perfection isn't going to happen. So if you can just find that wonderful balance, then you're going to feel and look really, really good.
Awesome. Julia, what are some ways that people, just kidding, I already asked that. Any equipment that you would recommend people to get for at-home workouts or substitutes if they don't have equipment?
Yeah, I think improvising is great. So if you don't have equipment, or you're uncomfortable, or not uncomfortable, but uncertain about what to purchase, you can always improvise. Use things around your house. If you have cans from your kitchen, wine bottles, you can use them as to curl things. If you take a backpack, you can put books in it and use it as like a heavy bag to lift. I'm like Paul Goodman over here. I have a whole thing of props ready. But I teach Mega Reformer Pilates. So we've been doing these virtual classes, and the room that I'm in is actually carpeted. So it's not as easy to slide. So we've been using like old DVD cases that are great to use, or paper plates are great. But if you wanted to invest, I would say light set of weights, dumbbells, anywhere between 2 and 10 pounds. You can grab a resistance band. These are the infinity ones that are nice. You can put these around your legs. Any sort of band or free weights, you can get a lot of use out of those.
Yeah, I right when this started, I got resistance bands, and I'm really happy that I got them.
Yeah.
Back to Joy. I think this is a question that everyone can relate to. What are some good fuel foods when eating emotionally, or when you're just kind of drained or not feeling like cooking anymore? Because I know that I am sick of cooking.
Well, the good news is I love to talk about this. Before you reach for the phone to, you know, do Grubhub or Uber Eats or one of these things, I really want people just to kind of stop, take a drink of water, and chill out for a minute and think about what they have in your house. I think the typical American thinks that dinner has to be complicated. I am perfectly fine with somebody choosing a few snobby snacks that I call them. Something, for example, a snobby snack to me is something like a banana with peanut butter, a half of a sandwich. There's no reason that you can't take a few of those snacks and slam them together and make them into a meal that you'll feel satisfied with. And I don't know about all of you, but I like a lot of different flavors sometimes at dinner. So I like to think of like a kindergartner having like a little bit of grapes and a little bit of cheese and a little bit of crackers and, you know, fun things in there. As long as you're getting some sort of a carb to give you guys an energy and some sort of protein and fat to keep you fuller longer with a nice pile of veggies, sure, go right ahead. And by all means, if you really, really feel like you need to order pizza or something like that, that's fine. It's just when it becomes an everyday event is where things start to get a little hairy.
Awesome. Good tips. Nikki, you had mentioned earlier about doing some at-home skincare masks. What are some skincare recommendations that you have at home with maybe some ingredients that people could find in their house?
Yeah, this is great. There's so many wonderful things you can find around the house to give yourself a really, great facial. I love the simplicity of oatmeal, cooked oatmeal with a little honey. And you can even smush a little banana in there. I give this to my kids as well when my daughter Lucy wants to do skincare with me. And so it's really, really great for sensitive skin, and it hydrates. It's wonderful. So a little oatmeal, a little honey, a little banana is a wonderful one. If you're feeling dry, usually when the seasons change, everyone's skin kind of reacts in different ways. And a lot of times it's like dry, flaky. So I always do a sugar scrub. So find yourself a little oil, whether it's vegetable or coconut, sunflower oil, and make sure you're not allergic to anything, but use that with like a little brown sugar and mix it together. If you have any essential oils, you can drop them in there as well. And you can give yourself a full scrub and then take a nice warm shower or bath, and then top it off with some natural coconut oil, and you have yourself a full, spa day.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julia, did you have any good stretches or recommendations for exercises for, posture or your core during these times? I know a lot of us are used to being way more active and we're not as active anymore. So you can get kind of achy and feeling tight. So any recommendations?
Yeah, and I'm sure Nikki probably has a million, being a masseuse.
Yeah.
But, I feel like if you want a really good stretch, I would recommend doing maybe a yoga flow or a yoga type of stretch, yoga class. If you don't have a resource, you can always YouTube something that there's like a million 10-minute, 5-minute, 25-minute type of yoga classes for stretches. But I think some really good ones are desk stretches, which sort of just stretch out your upper body from when you're sitting like hunched over on your computer all day. So just sort of stretching out your arms across your body. You can take them up and pull. For postural, I like to always stretch out my chest, because usually when your chest gets really tight is when you start to round in your spine or in your upper back. So I actually learned this from a masseuse. So Nikki, maybe I'm sure you're familiar with this one. Taking your arm against like a wall and then pushing your shoulder forward really helps open up your chest. Also, I have an obsession with foam rolling. So if you don't know what that is, I have one here to show you. But this is really great if you lay your spine along it and just lay down on the ground, and you can just open up your arms. It really stretches out your chest, your shoulders, your spine. Things like that. There's also a company on Instagram, I'm sure you could find them. They're based in New York. They're called Stretched, and they just have 1,000,001 exercises on their Facebook, on Instagram, of just easy little tips that you can do throughout the day, whether it's stretching your neck properly, stretching your hips, your lower back. So you can always look them up. They're great for people that are sitting all day, professionals that are busy working that don't have time to sit there and do a 45-minute stretch, but are just quick and easy things to get your body moving.
Awesome. Nikki, did you have any other suggestions?
Yes, I actually, Julia hit on it with some of the chest and the neck stretches, and which are wonderful openers. Don't forget to breathe while you're doing it. A lot of my clients say, "Oh yeah, I stretch," and they tell me what they're doing, and they're holding in their breath, which creates no oxygen to that muscle, and doesn't really help anything. But if you have any acute pain, I get the question, ice or heat all the time, and I just think if it's a muscle that's inflamed, ice is always better. But when our muscles are tired and they're achy, a nice heat wrap, that the ones that you can put into the microwave, you can get them on Amazon for pretty cheap. They're wonderful. You just set them on, and if you're someone that has to work at the computer a lot, you can just keep that on your neck while they're working, and hopefully that creates a nice posture, and also has a little warming property that will help that muscle. I think that the foam rollers are amazing. What a great investment. They can be $15-20.
Yeah, they're super inexpensive, and you can get them anywhere.
Right. And I just think that's a wonderful thing you can do at home when you don't have your massage therapist living with you. So any kind of hot shower, things like that, that's really going to help stretch. I also think that people think that they might have to do stretches like a certain time. And I think it's not, I like to just stretch throughout the day, like a couple of minutes here, maybe 30 seconds here and there. And that really helps for me.
Awesome. We probably have time for one more question each before we wrap up. So Joy, someone asked, what are some good plant-based protein options that is not tofu?
Oh, wonderful. Great question.
This actually was my personal question.
Oh, was it? Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I am a huge fan of beans, lentils, edamame, quinoa, the grains, all of those types of things for proteins. And the great part about them is that you don't just get the protein in there, you're also getting a whole lot of fiber, which is going to keep you fuller longer. The most important, amazingly great thing about them is that they're really diverse. So, and a can of beans is super easy to open and do something with. So when we're kind of getting to that idea before about ordering out and things like that, how about just making some nachos with some cheese for some good protein and add some beans on there, and there you go. You know, that could be something that will satisfy you before you order a cheesesteak or a pizza if you live in Philly. So I'm a big fan right now of lentils. I add them to almost everything. I put them on salads. I put them in with ground meat if I'm making some sort of like a taco to kind of bulk up the meat and to also add fiber to it. And the nice part is however you season a lentil, it's going to basically taste that way. So if you put some sort of taco seasoning on it, if you're putting some sort of a curry on it, it's going to taste that way, which is great. Something like edamame, a cup of edamame is going to give you 17 grams of protein, and that's a nice kick, along with a ton of fiber, and it makes for a great snack.
Awesome. Nikki, so you mentioned a self-care Sunday kit that you put together. Just curious, what is in that kit and where could people get that?
Thank you. I own a skincare line called Polished, and it's available on my website, handsathome.com. And in that particular kit, I wanted something, like I've been saying, something people can do at home while they're distancing and we can't get our normal Botox or treatments, you know, whatever you like to do for yourself. And this gives your skin a good kick, and it makes you feel like you just stepped out of the spa. So I included a cleanser, a glycolic gel, and you top it off with an O2 lift mask, which is ultra, hydrating, and it plumps the skin. You can sleep in it actually. So when you wake up, you feel so refreshed and, have nice, new, beautiful skin.
Awesome. Thank you. And Julia, what are some fun alternatives for cardio besides running?
I love this question because I am not a runner at all, and I actually really dislike running. So I'm always trying to find my cardio in other ways. Biking is a great option if you have a bike, if you have a stationary bike at home. I know a lot of people during this time have purchased them. A great option besides running. There's also, you can take little HIIT workouts, little sections of cardio workouts like jumping jacks and mountain climbers and sort of stream them together, or find someone maybe that's teaching a HIIT style workout, 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, do it a couple times. It'll really get your heart rate up. 15 minutes max and you will be dripping sweat. Jump rope is also great. Dance cardio, if anyone wants to dance, it's always fun, or just dancing around your room, your house, put some music on, dance around. Cardio, I feel like it's so daunting and people are like, oh, I hate doing it, because most people associate cardio with running, and a lot of people don't enjoy running. I am one of them. Some people do, and I wish I was one of them, because I feel like it's very therapeutic, but I just don't do it. So if you're someone that doesn't run, there are a million other options that you can do for cardio. You just have to get creative. If you have stairs in your home, this is a good one. My sister actually does this a lot. She like runs up and down the stairs. She'll put a timer on for like 2 minutes, and she'll just go up and down the stairs straight, stop a minute. She'll do it a couple times just to get herself going. And you can run up in them, you can walk, you'll definitely feel your heart rate go up.
Awesome. And for anyone listening, Julia actually does some really fun hip hop cardio classes on Friday nights. I've been doing them with her. She's doing another series come May. So if people are interested in reaching out and connecting to you, Julia, how should they do that?
You can either message me on Instagram or send me an email. I can type it in the chat. So
yes, yeah. And her Instagram is at Julia Giordano. I know that because she actually is one of my closest friends. Nikki, if people wanted to get in touch with you for more information about the self-care Sunday kits, or just how to do anything that you covered today at home, how could they get in contact with you?
Please revisit my website at www.handsathome.com. And they can also feel free to just drop me an email at Nikki, Nicki, at handsathome.com. I would love to hear from anybody.
Awesome. And Joy, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you if they want to connect with you about your services?
So the easiest way to get to me is probably via email, joy@thejoyofnutrition.net. They can also go on to my website where they can fill out a form, like a consult request form. That's www.thejoyofnutrition.net. And I'm also on Facebook quite a bit, and that's just at The Joy of Nutrition LLC.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think Paul is coming back on shortly. If anyone has any questions, we put Joy, Nikki, and Julia's information in the chat box and in the comments on Dental Nachos. So ladies, thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
And
Thank you so much.
Paul, Jill, and Mary, if you're there.
Here can turn their video on. I want to tell you guys, awesome job. I learned a lot. I really appreciate you sharing with our Nacho community. This is everything that Dental Nachos is about. The more we care and share, the better world we can build together. I also give a lot of C, and I always want to take away one thing. And I tell people, just take away one thing, do one thing today, one thing the next day, one thing the next day, a little bit better, makes a lot better life. So I decided I was going to take away one thing. So I'm really appreciative of my friend Ariel Meredith telling us to get wine delivery, because Julie, you said you do bicep curls with wine, and we have 12 bottles over there. So that's my one thing for today. Maybe I'll work on nutrition. That's on day 5, Joyce. Stretching, Nikki, I'm going to put that on day 7. But awesome job, guys. Really appreciate everyone watching it. If you would like a recording of this to learn, show your family and friends. If you finish Netflix and want to watch this, salsa@dentalnachos.com. Put in Nacho Wellness Summit. You will also get a free prize for a 10 CE series. Dental Nacho team, drop in the text link for the free CE series. And I really appreciate you guys being here on Nacho Zoom TV. Mrs. Nacho did such a good job. I can retire this face. You've seen enough of it. So now for the next, till the pandemic is over, this is who you have at Nacho Zoom TV. I'm going to retire. So awesome. Thanks for watching. Thanks, panel. You guys are great.